and fair play. I wish I was good enough to get limited, but I'm just not. I'm just not good enough. That's it's one of my ambitions in life to be limited by sportsbook, but unfortunately, it's something that's never happened to me. So yeah.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Behind the Lines in 2024, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. No picks, no predictions, no crystal balls, a lot of education, a lot of tools, a lot of strategies to make responsible betting decisions. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. That guy over there, Andrew Pace, the founder of In Play Live, the most sophisticated sports betting community on planet Earth. And if you want to see what it's all about on the inside, we got a promo code for you. That is Behind the Lines, all caps. All right, Pace, welcome to the new year. Happy New Year to you, my friend. And wowzers, do we have a show for you today? I am very excited about this show. We've got two executives from a sportsbook, Power Play. We'll get to them in a minute. Very, very fruitful conversation, contentious at times. Certainly some tense moments in there, but an excellent conversation nonetheless that I think both recreational sports bettors and people like yourself, Pace, who have been in this game for a long, long time, will find some value in. So that is coming up for you in just a few minutes. But first, Pace, I want to ask you about your holidays. How did your sports betting go over the holidays? We had a nice little break. It's been a while since we chatted.
Yeah, well, I think our last episode, we gave a little caveat on what to look out for during bull season. And I think that was a very fairly positioned discussion given the results that have now come in. So I think that as a general message, betting throughout the holidays and bull season, but also betting as a whole, look out for those traps that get set for many, many public bettors. It's interesting. I came across a reel on Instagram that had serious virality. So, hundreds of thousands of views of why Ohio State will beat Missouri. And this guy putting his whole reputation on that one pick. And it was, I basically posted below that reel saying what I said on the podcast. This is precisely what the sports books want you to think in this spot. I'm not claiming Missouri is going to win that game. I have no clue who's going to win. But it was nice to see that storyline come into fruition, like exactly how the sports books want you to think about that game. And people got bit hard. Not only that, when we first talked about that game, the line, Missouri was favorited because the books knew. They knew that they should be favorited in that game, and the line just moved Ohio State's way day in, day out, right up to kickoff. I think it ended up like -5. And of course, they scored a field goal in the entire game. That was it. So look out for those traps, guys.
Yeah, they're out there. There's lots of them out there, and you can learn how to spot them, by joining our community and kind of learning as you go. It was I'm very lucky to have completed a full calendar year in the In Play Live community. 2023 was my sort of first full year. It was excellent, and I was able to celebrate that my success and share my success with my family by surprising them at Christmas with an all-inclusive vacation to a Caribbean island, and that was really nice to be able to do. So
that's insane, man.
Just so that they could see the fruits of my labor, because, they see me working at it. Right. And it's taking time away from them at times. And, some sacrifices are made, but this was a really kind of nice way to surprise them. And what an awesome time that was. One thing, though, a lesson learned while on vacation. While on vacation, you should be on vacation. And so, I thought, oh, you know what, I'll use some in-play live strategies, some stuff that I use on a regular basis to build my bankroll. Oh, I'll just do a little poolside betting. I'll just hit this for a little bit over here, at the beach, and, I'll just tune in a little bit here and there. And, anything away, this was something that I learned, anything away from my sports betting setup, I have to treat and look at as a recreational sports bet. Anything that isn't at my desk, in my comfort zone, in my workspace, has to be treated as recreational, and I shouldn't try to take it on the road with me. It was just one of those things where, yeah, I had some go my way, some didn't, and kind of like a break even kind of thing. But, just those moments of oh, you're doing that again, from the wife, or hey, we're going to be late for dinner. Oh, babe, just let me get this one in, it's like, no, I gotta check that next time and make sure that, next time you go on vacation, take a full on vacation away from it. Poolside betting can be fun and that kind of thing, but I have to look at it in terms of this is strictly just for fun and only in those moments where I can have that little bit of fun. So little learning experience for me there.
Yeah, and as someone that's just like, you see I'm moving around all the time, Shane. I think you see that on the streams, right? And for me, I factor that into where I'm going and the decisions that I'm making, and it's no joke. So if you guys are good at sports betting and actually succeed with it, and you're betting live like we are, plan to either completely unplug or plan to, when and wherever you are, plug in the capacity that you can. So poolside on your phone, that probably isn't going to yield the best results, but maybe a couple of iPads, a couple games on in some capacity where you're maybe removed from your family and group for the vacation, and you say, hey guys, I'm going to work for 2 hours at this time. I think you can still do really well. It's really all about your planning and how you're going to, set that all up for yourself.
Yeah, you really sort of have to take an all-in or all-out approach, I think, and if you do want to do some recreational stuff by the pool, that's fine too, but just know that maybe my unit size will be like a tenth of what it might normally be, right?
That's the entertainment side of betting,
that's
right?
the entertainment, exactly, right?
Yeah,
you still want to have a little bit of fun. Anyway,
I've had a few poolside parlays in my day, Shane.
Yeah, I know you've done a few poolside here and there, right? I mean, who doesn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was still a great time, a lot of fun, but now I'm back. And I am ready to dial in, and I've been dialed in over the past week, and ready to dial into betting, but also ready to dial into this podcast. We have got quite a lineup for all of you out there watching and listening. So we have an interview today, but we're going to have more coming up. I'll tell you a little bit more about those later on. But for now, Pace, I think maybe we bring in our guests, and why don't we run that interview for you now? Here it is. Larry Fisher, head of content at Powerplay, and Rob Davies, chief operating officer at Powerplay. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Looking forward to it.
Hey, great to have you both on. As the name implies, I'm wondering, does your sportsbook have a hockey focus?
Certainly plays well to hockey, right? Power play, it goes good with that target audience, because certainly we're big in Canada. Canada's one of our main targets, and it does play well that the power play name, even though it's not focused on hockey, it goes hand in hand for sure.
We've got Hockey Day in Canada on Saturday. Anything special to mark the occasion with your sportsbook?
Actually, there is. We're boosting the odds for the potential for a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup, because you look at the recent streaks of obviously Winnipeg, Vancouver, Edmonton, and even Toronto. Toronto's kind of hit and miss, but and Calgary's coming on a little strong. But so there are a number of Canadian teams in the playoff race, some that are considered Stanley Cup contenders. So we've boosted the odds from plus 200 to plus 350 for this week for kind of a promotion leading up to Hockey Day in Canada, as well as a 20-1 odds we'll give you for an all Canadian final, which obviously when you look at the Eastern Conference, you're probably looking at Toronto. So the potential of Toronto facing Winnipeg, Vancouver, Edmonton in the final, and obviously even tonight Edmonton and Toronto are facing off the big McDavid-Matthews rivalry. So it's interesting, and it's definitely a good week for all Canadian matchups in the NHL.
Any kind of suggestion that Toronto could make the final is met with very cautious optimism over here as a guy who's in the Toronto area. Not something that I would want to get my hopes up for too much. But that sounds pretty cool, and sort of a fun sort of futures bet there being offered. Rob, this question sort of for you. We're called In Play Live. That's the the company here that is presenting this podcast Behind the Lines. And as our name suggests, we focus on live betting. How would you describe the live wagering experience at Powerplay?
Good question. I mean, I think, yeah, it's good what we do. I think, I mean, I've come from a European background, so live betting is paramount in European sport, and I think North America's a little bit behind that. And I think we're just trying to adjust to that now and trying to make sure that our live offering is on a par with what some of the potentially the European books are able to do, just in terms of the scope and in terms of the content and in terms of the timings, and just it's just a much more attractive proposition, I think, for punters. And I think the European market's probably latched onto it quicker than the North American markets, and we're trying to sort of redress that balance with our offering.
Yeah, certainly on that side of the pond, Pace, we've sort of seen that they are a little bit more ahead of us than we are here in North America, just generally in the sports betting space.
I mean, I would agree with that sentiment historically, but it's funny. So yesterday I was sitting here and I watched Jamie Foxx pop up on my screen, right? The BetMGM ad. And I thought to myself, how the hell is this sportsbook competing with the DraftKings, the FanDuels, the 365s when their live offering is actually so inferior? Anything from same game parlays to result of drive betting, result of play betting, player props. Yes, BetMGM has some of them, but I was looking at it and going, geez, it's crazy. And it's literally the name and the brand. So I was thinking about you guys obviously coming on the show, and I thought to myself, how does it really fit in the whole ecosystem? Obviously the major books, put that aside, but like these live markets that, you guys are competing with that are obviously like extremely robust. And, I like looking at some of the markets yesterday that I think maybe a lot of bettors pass over. I'm not entirely sure, but right down to the type of play and the outcome of that play combined in one pick, where you are literally betting with like 2 to 5 second results after the time you've placed the wager. It's quicker than a spin of a roulette wheel.
Especially for the NFL playoffs. I know I've seen a lot of those, a lot of action in the NFL playoffs, but definitely from power plays perspective, I know it's something we're very interested in. We know there's a demand for it. We know that there's an appetite for it among our players and our users. It's something we get a lot of feedback that they want more live props and to be able to do those combos and stuff. So definitely it's looking to the future. It's something we're looking to add more and more of and find our place in that market, because we know it is the future, and it's entertainment value is second to none when you can make those wagers that are going to be impacted in, like I said, a matter of a minute or two, right? It's that much more exciting.
I mean, I think it's interesting that the differences from Europe and North America. Both obviously in Europe, live betting's been more common and more popular for longer, but on the North American side, in the European side, it's a lot about just the game result and maybe first correct scores or first goal scorers in soccer, although I would call it football, obviously. But in the North American side, it's much more about prop betting. So I think putting that prop betting and live betting experience together for us is where the real opportunity lies.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity there. But also, on this side of the pond, a lot of opportunity for the sports books to kind of enter and grow and that kind of thing. A lot of sort of unclaimed ground out there in the North American market. Initially, in sort of my process of kind of getting you guys on the show, I saw a press release of you guys sort of celebrating your 5-year anniversary. So I think you launched in 2018. You licensed in Ontario in 2022. Talk to me a little bit about the process of building a sports book in the North American market. Is it as easy as it looks?
I mean, I think our story is an interesting one, because it was interesting that your first question about where power play came from, and I wish it did come from a sort of hockey association, but it was our founder had a number of different names, and that was the one he went with, and we think it's a great name, and it has applicability to there's power plays in cricket, which is a sport I'm very passionate about, but obviously landing in and we grew in Canada, and it was a little bit of a process of trial and error, trying to find a market which had got a sweet spot whereby there was enough customers there was enough appetite for betting. From a regulatory point of view, it was relatively easy to access. So, Canada we hit upon, and things like payment methods are always really difficult for sports books coming in. If you can't get the money out, and we tried markets where we just couldn't get the money in or out, and so however good your product is. But Canada was the one that we found a sweet spot in terms of the market appetite was there, and it was relatively easy to access, and it was less competitive. I mean, that's changing, and I think the difference in our business between what we see in Ontario now, it's regulated and a lot of big boys coming in, versus the other provinces in Canada where it's not quite the same and it's probably slightly less competitive. But yeah, I think building a sportsbook, I mean, there is some strategy and there is some planning, but some of it's finding the right market at the right time. And I think we were lucky with the Canadian market, and we've managed to build the customer base. And then when we do regulate like Ontario, we have that customer base and that audience who understand us and understand our product.
I want to ask you about that customer base, and kind of how you compete with those big dogs, as you kind of call them there. When you are competing with those big sports books, I would imagine that oftentimes the types of customers Power Play attracts are the ones who are looking for alternatives to those big sports books. And, the sports bettors seeking those alternatives may often also be very sharp bettors, like many members of our audience who are going to listen to this and watch this podcast. Pace would consider himself a pretty sharp bettor, and I would consider him a pretty sharp bettor as well. What does that relationship look like between Power Play and its customers, and specifically those sharp sports bettors?
Well, I mean, if I could tell that, I mean, my background's actually customer operations, so I've sort of come up through customer operations into a more senior role. So for us, I think one of the differentiators with Power Play is the emphasis we put on building relationships with customers and having great service and being available 24/7 to them. And yes, we do get sharp bettors, and that's inevitable in sports books, and we want as much as possible to take them on and give them, lay as big a bets as we can with them. It's not, it's not always possible, and we have a business to run. But I think what differentiates us, I think we've got an appetite to take the punters on, and we've got great service, and we want our punters to win. From time to time, we want to have that, to them to have that great experience.
Does Power Play limit sharp bettors? Because you kind of sort of alluded to there that you'd like to take their action, but you can't always. I
don't think there's any sportsbook in the world that doesn't limit its bettors that I'm aware of. So yeah, there comes a point where and fair play. I wish I was good enough to get limited, but I'm just not. I'm just not good enough. It's one of my ambitions in life to be limited by sportsbook, but unfortunately, it's something that's never happened to me. So yeah, I think I'd be lying if I said we didn't limit customers, but we want to give them a run. We want to give them an opportunity. We want to see what they're doing, to be honest, a lot of the time. But yeah, inevitably, sometimes you just got to take your hat off to guys and say, you're better than us.
So let me ask you about that then. I'm curious about how the process looks of limiting a sharp bettor. Is it a dollar amount? Is it a volume thing? Is it the markets that they're betting on? How does Power Play go about identifying those sharp bettors and limiting them?
So I think, it's going to depend on market. So if it's a money line on the NFL playoffs, we're going to want to lay a huge limit. If it's a third division Brazilian football game, just by its nature. So the market cap as to the size of bet you want to take is limited by that. And then there's a what we call a stake factoring process comes into play. So if you're good, you'll get, our customer, you start with 100% of that stake, but as you get better, you'll get limited. So if we'll lay 1,000 and you're at 10%, you'll get 100. That's the way it works. That's, I've had experience of all books in Europe and North America. They all do it pretty much the same way. And it's a case of looking at that feed of bets coming in. And if they're constant, if a customer bets a market and then 2 minutes later the price collapses and they consistently do that, you just know they've got a great angle and they're going to be difficult to beat. And that's the way it works.
And once they're identified as being difficult to beat, essentially then what? You kind of limit them to a point where they don't want to use your book anymore?
I guess so. We wouldn't want to limit, we'd want to still be able to use the book. But yeah, if you're a punter and you can get, $100 with us, you get 1,000 elsewhere, you're going to go elsewhere.
You mentioned some of those small markets there. I'm kind of wondering, if if someone's going to be limited for betting them, why offer them in the first place?
Well, we want to offer a range of markets to our customers, and we have, we will have interest in third division Brazilian football or, Division 1, League 1. So you want to offer a wide range of markets to your customers, but betting is, I'm sure it's about how much information is in the public domain. So with my team, Bolton Wanderers, a League 1 side, if one of the guys has had a big night out the night before, if the striker's had a big night out, then there's people who would know that, whereas, a Premier League player can't do that without everybody knowing. So where that information is limited and punters can get an edge, we just need to be cautious. There's, things like novelty markets on, TV shows and stuff like that, where people have information that we could never have, and that's where we've just got to be careful and more carefully manage our liabilities.
Hey, Scott.
You could sense me, Shane. So I have a question about that, actually, because if let's just use the frame of reference that you just brought up there, where you're saying, one particular player is getting in on odds that then plummet, and you've seen consistency with that, where you said they're going to be difficult to beat. I think that's a good example, obviously, from your guys' standpoint, where you go, hey, this guy's just a sharp guy, and he's taken care of us in a certain way. Now, I look at sharp action from the standpoint, and again, I am not a sports book, but I look at it from the standpoint of balanced action, right? So if we use a pregame betting equation, and we have 90% of the public on one side, and you do get some sharp action that comes in on the other side of that public action, that does show consistency or a consistent pattern of winning with that particular account. Does that not help balance the overall equation? And isn't that player someone that you would want to help with that overall balance of handle?
Yeah, I think in circumstances, you're right. In certain circumstances, you do want to balance the book, and you will take action from, a sharp better because it suits the book. So yeah, I agree.
So from a liability standpoint, if you are removing the sharp player from the equation, does that not create, potential liability from the standpoint of consistently getting public action on or let's call it public action on one side that could expose you to, a loss that the book's not comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in reality, if you looked at 100 markets of ours, then it'd be quite rare, actually, when, you might want to think from an operator point of view, all we want to do is balance the book and take our margin. In reality, if you actually looked at what our books look like, 90% of those markets, one side or other will mean win or lose to us. It's just on balance, we tend to win slightly more than we lose, and that's where our margin comes in. So it's not a case that, on a really big market like the Super Bowl, where we've got action for 6 months in advance, we might be looking to balance the book. But where it's a game where we might only take, 50, 100 bets on, the chances are it will be skewed one way or the other, and they always are. So it's not a case of us sitting, we're skewed on, the Bills to win last night, and, we want the other side to, we want action from the other side to balance the book. It's just, if we did that, we would, we'd never close a book. It's just not realistic.
Right. So then if you kind of take that same philosophy and then you apply that to a live market, you might be dealing only with sharp action in that one particular case.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in that case, if there is some sort of pattern, do you look at actually removing that market or making an adjustment to that market rather than removing the player?
Yeah. And that's part of it. I guess there's two control mechanisms where, there's a longer term one where you look at the action from that specific customer. Then there's a short term measure is you just alter the prices because, and we see that all the time. We'll start a market up and then all the action will be on one side. And we've just got if you say the odds represent the true probability, then we've got the true probability wrong. So we adjust our odds to balance that. And yeah.
Right. And I think that's obviously what I would expect a sports book to do in that case is go, hey, you know what? You guys got us on this market. We're going to pull it. We're going to change it. We're going to make an adjustment. Now, you touched on customer service and obviously how important that is to you. I'll actually agree with that sentiment. I actually went on your guys' chat before just to see how prompt and I can't see the person's name, but she was great. Quick response, took care of my questions that I needed. And honestly, I think that is an underrated aspect of a lot of sports books. But yeah, from a customer service standpoint, I have noticed sports books in general. So this isn't a direct shot at Power Play, but I'm curious to know, given that you do talk about your customer service, what your thoughts are on sports books hiding behind their odds provider as a separate entity. So I'm sorry, this is a business decision made by the trading team and you cannot speak with them, being this ongoing and consistent pattern that you see across the industry. Because when I look at any industry as a whole, when you see businesses adopt the same practice as everyone else and just basically say essentially that that's the way it is or that's how it is, I see opportunity, because I look at that and I go, there's an opportunity to disrupt here. There's an opportunity to be the leader in this space, be that customer service, be that sharp action, be that whatever the case may be. And of course, I'm not saying that Power Play needs to do all these things. What I'm saying is, how do you guys handle those situations? Will you actually interact with a customer in a way that does give them the actual reality of the situation, or do you guys do the whole, oh, it's a business decision from the trading team and you can't speak to them? And it's almost like the books will play like a I'm sorry, we can't do anything, it's their decision, not ours. But meanwhile, you guys work together.
Yeah. I mean, if I can answer that sort of in the general and the specific, the general point I'd make is I think you're right. I think customer service isn't I don't think sportsbook differentiate on it. And I think that's something we try and do and we want to do more of. And actually, interestingly, I think part of the reason is there's just something different about the gambling industry that the customer, I can't think of a parallel industry where the customer
I agree.
the operator and actually at loggerheads. And I think that actually permeates a little bit the way customer service teams sometimes think about the punter. They're there to protect our margin and protect the money. And I think, I do the customer service training for my guys myself, and I try and break down that a little bit and get them to understand that, look, yes, they want to beat us, but they're also our customers. And if we don't have customers, we don't have revenue. I think in the specific, I think what we're talking about is ownership of an issue. And I think, it's another thing that I teach when I talk to the customer service guys. It's about owning that problem yourself, and that you might not know the answer, but I don't want people saying it's that team over there or it's someone else's department. I want them, getting the information from the traders and explaining it in a, fair and reasonable way, as I think I've done in terms of some of the decisions we've made. So yeah, I agree. Customer service in the gambling industry is not great, and I think it's absolutely an opportunity to disrupt for us as a brand.
Yeah, I find too with the whole AI conversation, it's almost like that is even further dehumanizing even the human aspect of a lot of this area of all industries. So it's really important, obviously, to engage with people. But I would love for someone to have just told me, hey, Andrew, you were too good. You can't play here anymore. Exactly and instead it's like you're hiding behind someone, But yeah, I hear you.
I only wish someone had said that to me once, but unfortunately.
Hey, we can teach you, Rob. We've got some skills and some strats, buddy.
I did teach you. Just finally, sort of on the AI point, I think that's another area where it is a sort of structural problem with customer service teams, because I'm constantly getting people telling me, look, I've got these wonderful technology solutions so you can get rid of your agents. I don't want that. I want our real agents talking to our customers, because those interactions are so valuable. If a customer can't log in, or they've got a problem with their deposit or their withdrawal, I don't want an AI chatbot dealing with it and annoying them. I want a real person dealing with them straight away so they can solve the problem and they can get back into the action.
I want to ask you about one sort of problem that may arise in a customer relations situation there, where somebody might be complaining about something, and this is in the area of bad lines that get posted, and I'm talking about perhaps a hanging line. So I'm talking about a situation where the outcome's already known, but the line is still posted, and somebody bets one side of that. Or perhaps the outcome isn't known, but the odds are totally off, and one side is really, really favored, but the odds don't reflect that. They're still sitting at an even money kind of situation. How does Power Play treat those bets specifically? When there is either a line that's still posted, and the outcome's already known, or the odds are just way off. How do you treat those situations?
I mean, it's sort of fair play, isn't it? I mean, I wish I could say that we would never make a mistake and never lean a line open, or we would never have incorrect odds. But the reality is the technology we're dealing with, and there's human beings in there, it will happen. And we can't, in reality, sustain a business if if something's been left up at 100 to 1 and someone put 1,000 on, we just won't have a business. So I think we need to make the adjustment. We need to void the bet or whatever our specific rule says in that circumstance. But it's about communicating with the customer, looking at the value of the customer, and also, you can, and I've been dealing with these situations for 20 years in different circumstances, and sometimes you can see it's clearly, the customer normally bets $10 and he's bet $1,000. You can sort of see something happen. And in some cases, and I've dealt with cases like this where you've had the customer always bets $400. He always bets on the money line, and it's 5 minutes late, and you can look at the bets and you can see all the ones that you guess they knew, and you see the odd one and you think he probably didn't even know the game had started, or he didn't know there'd been a game, and actually you can't see inside the head, so you'd never know. So in those cases, I'm all for being sensible, applying a bit of discretion, and saying, look, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt in this situation. We won't apply our rule, and we'll either pay the bet out or we'll give. I think we've got to be sensible, because you want to maintain a long-term relationship with customers. And in some cases it is a genuine mistake on their part. It's not, deliberate.
What about when the book makes a mistake? Because I know you said that you hope that you never will, but it happens, and we all make mistakes, right? We make mistakes as bettors. Books make mistakes. These things happen. When a bad line does get posted, though, so you're kind of suggesting that yes, you will void the bet, right? Because that's it was just incorrect and a mistake was made, and you'll sort of void the bet. Do you void both sides of the bet, though? The winner and the losing side?
Yeah, I mean, if it's late, it's late. We will void both, definitely. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Pace, you've tried. I didn't get a chance to try the Power Play sportsbook myself, but Pace, you had a chance to do some betting on the Power Play site, right?
Yeah, so I think just in line with this whole discussion, I think what we've witnessed through our lens is obviously very much North America based. And there's this bull rush to the North American sports betting market. Obviously, billions of dollars in transactions, notably the purchase of SB Tech by DraftKings, and other odds providers, and obviously purchases that have happened. And one of the discussions that we've really followed on this podcast has been the launch of sportsbooks, but also the closure of sportsbooks. FoxBet, I'm not sure how you guys are familiar with them. They shut down operation, and it looks like WinBet is kind of right behind them. They shut down in almost every state, and they're very much just hanging by a thread in the few states, or the one state that they're still operating in. And you think about those names, like FoxBet is not just a Fox, it's Fox Sports. It's the major, networking publication, broadcasting company, and Wynn is Steve Wynn, right? So obviously major player on the Las Vegas Strip and hotels across North America, right? And the reason why those books shut down, FoxBet had an independent odds provider, but Wynn was using Scientific Gaming, and quite honestly, some of the softest lines I've ever seen in my life. And I am a sharp bettor, and I do see the opportunities that people have against certain odds providers and against certain books, and I see them consistently. I see them over time, and I see them in a whole series of different ways. As I like to say to people, there are many different ways to make money from betting on sports, and of course, I'm speaking about the people that you really don't want playing on your sports book. But it's my belief that those sports books actually shut down because of the fact that there was this rush to the market. There was massive expenditures in ad spend, promotions to players, but also too, we saw, especially in the United States, like I really didn't see this in Canada, but books honoring bad lines, books paying out voided markets, and new sports books with new odds providers providing a lot of opportunity for mistakes to be out there and readily be available to bet on. Now, again, going back to my lens, I would coach players and say, guys, if you bet on these lines, like, you're going to lose your account. If you bet on these lines, it won't be sustainable. But if you're going to, make hay while the sun's shining kind of thing, if you have these opportunities, by all means, go ahead and go hit them when and where you can. Just don't expect it to continue. So a state like New Jersey being a really good example, they have, specific regulation that actually doesn't allow sportsbooks to void some of these bets. So people have been able to successfully go to the New Jersey regulator when a book has overturned something like this and then gone and gotten their money out of the situation. Now, the reason why Shane brought this up is actually kind of an unfortunate situation. So I signed up for a Power Play account a few years ago and lost some money into there, which I tend to do on purpose. And then I'll come back to the sports book. Gotta laugh at you. It's okay. You guys got me. Don't worry. You won this battle. So came back to Power Play because I knew that this interview was coming. And I'm like, you know what? I want to play on their lines for the weekend and have some fun and see how it goes. So there was a line posted in the Miami Dolphins New York Jets game. And of course, you guys aren't going to be able to reference this. And I bet my standard amount on the line. Everywhere was at -9.5 for the first half. It was sitting at -3.5. So I'm like, all right, let's see how they're going to handle this. $1,000 on the soft side, $1 on the side that should lose. Like the 1,000 on the winning side is as close to, it's like a 99% situation. And I threw $1 on the other side. So you guys voided the winning side and took the $1 on the losing side. So both sides were not voided. Now I'm gonna just put my stance out there. I am a person that firmly believes that if a sports book posts a really bad line, that they should not pay it. And a lot of our group will disagree with me on that because they'll say, Pace, you know what? We're against the books. How many bets would I have wanted to take back if I didn't want to click this side or a mistake that I made or whatever? But that's the game that we play. I can certainly understand an agreement is made at the time that you place the wager that both sides agreed to, and that a sports book should be held accountable in those circumstances. But I totally get it. When a mistake happens with a sports book, you can potentially have millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in exposure, depending on that game. That can be incredibly challenging for that sports book to deal with. Now, I was a losing player on your site. The losing side lost, the winning side got voided, and then of course in came the limits, and I got limited being a losing player on Power Play. So I super appreciate you guys coming on the show. I didn't know that this was going to happen to me leading up to the show. But I got to be honest with you guys. This is the problem with this industry. I was punished for walking into your store and taking something that you offered me. I didn't get paid out and I lost my account. You sit there and go, what is a guy to do in these spots? And how can a book like Power Play that isn't one of the major players that is up and coming be more reputable in a place like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't comment on the individual because I just don't see everything. But we can look at it, and yeah. I mean, it sounds like the experience wasn't great, but I don't know the details. But I think
I just gave you the details, Rob.
I want to just jump in there and ask, the sort of circumstance that Pace outlined isn't something that is rare for us to see. We've seen it with other sports books as well. And so, one side, winning side voided, losing side, money taken. Why aren't we voiding both sides? How is that fair?
Yeah, well, that's my understanding. Both sides should be voided. And as I say, I haven't seen that bet, so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you give me the same sense. I'm saying, in my view, both sides should have been voided. If they haven't been, that doesn't look like it's been done right. But I haven't seen that individual case.
Okay, so what are the chances that this was a one-off?
I don't know. I would hope it is. I think in general, that's the principle I would apply. Okay,
well, we kind of have to take your word for it on that side of things. I want to move the conversation forward a little bit here. A big part of our podcast and its sort of reason for existence is to promote, real responsible betting and real responsible wagering, and promote concepts, education tools that kind of feed into that. Where does Power Play kind of align when it comes to responsible wagering? What is responsible wagering to Power Play?
I think, Larry, do you want to take this or?
Yeah, I definitely think we do have the tools in place, and the support page is something that's it is beyond just lip service. It is something that we do offer our players, and we do have reminders. I know we're going to grow our social media presence in the weeks and months to come. That's something we're passionate about reviving, and in there's going to be a lot of reminders about responsible gambling, and something that, especially in newer markets, or now with the live betting in Ontario, and like Pace said earlier, the 1 and 2 minute turnaround bets, and you can get caught up in that and get the intensity going or the excitement going. So with more and more of that coming online, I think it becomes that much more important to really encourage and have those tools accessible when it comes to responsible gambling. And certainly Power Play wants to be a leader on that side of amongst the group as a whole, but in the industry. But certainly Power Play takes that very seriously.
I'm wondering, you mentioned that, you're taking it seriously, which is fantastic, and you plan to have tools. I'm wondering if that toolbox contains things like tutorials on how to middle, explanations on arbitrage, how to practice proper money management, a tracking tool for tracking wagers. Are any of these things in that toolbox?
I mean, I think our focus on Toolbox is things like, timeouts, deposit limits, self-exclusion, those opportunities. I think some of the stuff you mention is, and it's a sensible suggestion that, you should have some of that information on the site. We have information for, problem gambling organizations. We don't specifically have stuff about, how to bet, how to arbitrage, how to, that stuff is widely available, but it's an interesting point you raise about is whether it's something we should have on our site. But for us, the toolkit is about, if you want to take a break from gambling, if you want to talk something, if you're worried about your gambling, if you want to set a deposit limit, if you want to set a loss limit, these are the sorts of tools that are available to customers to, bet in a more responsible and sustainable way.
Those are all the questions I have, guys. Did you have any final messages that you'd like to share with our audience?
I guess just obviously, again, the excitement over the Canadian NHL teams and the success they've been having. Definitely, there's been a lot of action on Canadian teams this year, and looking forward to the NHL betting in the second half of the season is going to heat up again, and obviously the two boosted odds with the all Canadian final, as you mentioned. I don't know how much action that'll get with Toronto unless they pick it up, but. Certainly the Western Conference has a few contenders in Canada, and again, the boosted odds for the potential for a Canadian team to bring the Stanley Cup home is something we're really excited about. And again, like I said, Power Play goes so well with hockey, so we're definitely excited to have a big market share here in Canada, and certainly within the hockey crowd as well.
Love the hockey, baby.
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk about American or Canadian sport because I'm just not the right person to do that. But certainly, Pace, from a customer service side, look, I'm disappointed. The experience wasn't great, but I'm more than happy to look into the details. We will get it wrong from time to time. We will make mistakes, but we're committed to provide just being fair and reasonable with customers. I mean, it's nice that you say. You dissuade your sort of audience from taking advantage of lines, because there are people out there who do, and we want a fair, a sort of fair environment where we treat you fairly and you treat us fairly, and we both try and win from one another. And if we don't get it right, then I'm more than happy to hold my hands up and look at what we've done.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rob. I think that in this case specifically, I actually would not have bet that line because I know what the outcome was. I know the outcome that's coming for me, having bet on that line. But I did because I wanted to see how you guys handle it. And I think that in any case, for anything business, like I'm a CEO of a company, right? I think there's always opportunities for improvement, and you saying that stuff matters, right? I'm not looking to get paid. That's the last thing I'm looking for here. I don't need you to go reverse that line. And I actually don't want you to do that. I think more than anything, again, I go back to my previous statement that I made. There's an opportunity in this industry to be a leader amidst, quite honestly, a lot of really bad practices. And you said there aren't any sports books that don't limit players. Well, Pinnacle doesn't limit winning players. Bookmaker doesn't limit winning players. There's a new sports book out of Ohio, and of course there's multiple exchanges, and there's some pretty exciting stuff going on in the crypto space in the industry. And I'm not saying that you don't need to limit your players. I would love for a purified betting industry where you guys go, hey, you know what? This is how we handle sharp action, and this is how it fits in our equation. And that might be something that's not important to you guys. And, that's fair. That's fine. You guys are, in this space for a reason, and you're doing your things for a reason. But yeah, I think that what happened to me is a great example of how things could be cleaned up a little bit, because I actually took you at face value when you said we would void both sides of the bet. And I think that's probably what you guys would want to do in that circumstance. And I know that there's a relationship between the sportsbook and the trading team, and the trading team may have made that decision. And that might be something where you have the opportunity to go, geez, we shouldn't have done that. And we're going to go follow up with them and make sure that this never happens again. And then that's where this process of starting to purify, the industry as a whole through one sportsbook leading the charge. That's what we're looking for at In Play Live. And that's why we actually have such a great relationship with Pinnacle, because they don't limit players. And I hate their sports book in a lot of ways, but I go, hey, you know what? At least their values are in line with allowing some of these sharp bettors to play. Because for a guy like myself, if I want to keep playing, I have to have a sports book like Pinnacle that isn't going to kick me off the site. So I appreciate your response. And I think it's just a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the relationship with traders, I mean, far be it from me to denigrate trading teams, but there is conflict at times between trading teams, and there's plenty of occasions where I've been, walked onto a trading floor having wanted to reverse a decision because, the traders, they can very much see it as their own money, and actually they don't always look at the wider view about building the relationship with the customers and treating them fairly and reasonably. And I'm not saying that's happened in this circumstances, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. Well, we've seen that firsthand through our lens again with the major hosts. So like DraftKings hosts, for example, they're offering guys Super Bowl tickets and amazing prize packages and all this kind of stuff. And we'll get a player and their host texts them saying like, hey, haven't seen you in a while. Got a great promotion for you, blah, 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 blah. And they respond and they go, I can't play on your site anymore. Like, I'd love to keep playing. And the host didn't even actually know that this had occurred to one of his top players, right? So we've seen a lot of this stuff happen, and there is certainly a disconnect with those trading teams. That's, again, some sports books hide behind that, and other sports books don't. And I mean, it certainly is a challenge. And DraftKings owns their trading team. They bought SB Tech, which is their trading team, and they still are like such separate entities with respect to what's going on. So definitely something that I think is an opportunity. I think that I'd just probably leave it at that.
Yeah, and that is something though, Rob's team, they do have a VIP experience, and that's something that really Power Play takes pride in is having the VIP bettors and the players and really giving them the best experience they can have on the site. But like I said, maybe there is a disconnect there at times as well.
Well, guys, Rob Davies, Larry Fisher. Rob is the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Power Play, and Larry Fisher, Head of Content at Power Play. Guys, I really appreciate both of you coming on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
All right, so that was the team from Power Play. What a conversation there, Pace. I've got some thoughts on it, especially when it comes to limiting players, and of course, the whole conversation around the voided bet versus winning side being voided, losing side not being voided. But I'm really I appreciate both of them for coming on the show and engaging with us in that way. So Pace, what thoughts from you?
I mean, I genuinely want a sports book like Power Play to thrive and succeed in this industry, and I want them to do it in a way that's sustainable, that allows for. He was not sugarcoating or bullshitting us. He cares about his customer service. He came from the bottom of that sports book and worked his way up to the COO, C-level management. So he's a pillar in their organization. And I genuinely think I caught him off guard there because I think he was disappointed that was the practice that occurred at his sports book. So creating that awareness is a really positive thing. So I'm glad we were able to do that. And I look forward to seeing how they take that conversation to heart, and seeing if they, do take their level of service to the next level, having had met with us. We're a unique group. We're not some easy group of people to deal with. We are the fucking thorn in their sides. We're guys that win money and call them out for their practices. Like, that's not fun. So you got to give these guys credit. They came on the show. They took the bullets. He took it to heart. I think he handled the feedback well. So yeah, I appreciate them coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Props to them for stepping up and kind of handling it the way they did. And we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe they will do something. Maybe they'll look at your account pace. Maybe they'll have your limits raised. Or,
so I didn't say this, but I don't want the money. Bring my account back. Give me my
account back.
If you guys are still listening, it's a terrible business decision, but give me my account back. Thanks.
Yeah. You don't need the $1 on the law side. You just want that account back and get those limits lifted. A couple of other things though. I think we gained some really nice inside detail on how they limit players. Nothing perhaps maybe new to you, Pace, but perhaps some of our audience members kind of learning from that. And I learned a little bit more on sort of, the idea that, you start at 100% and you slowly kind of work your way down. I've seen it in practice, but it was sort of interesting to hear it from an executive's mouth. And sort of, kind of just sort of confirm what I think we already knew. And so that was kind of, illuminating. But then the other side of it, when it came to responsible wagering, it's pretty clear that, they're not interested in real responsible wagering from the ways that we kind of look at it. They're sort of still looking at it through the lens that the rest of the industry looks at it, in terms of timeouts and, taking breaks and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to giving you, the sports bettor, the tools you need to succeed. And I guess, why would they? It's not in their interest.
Okay. And well, I could disagree with you on that to an extent, Shane. He said, this is what we offer, right? And could we offer betting education? He thought about it and he said, yes, we could. Yeah. So he could go and make those steps. And should he teach people how to middle and arbitrage? If I was a sports book, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Pinnacle does, and they're an outlier. So should they go teach people how to middle and arbitrage? I wouldn't. But could they offer some wager tracking? Could they, or maybe some betting education? We're putting together this video on how to use power play and the benefits and the entertainment aspects of sports betting and the risks associated with sports betting. That would be a really cool and really special thing to do in this industry that they could potentially look at. When you talk about, they don't offer real betting tools. Again, I look at it from the standpoint of, this is the industry. Do they know about this opportunity? Probably not, or not to the degree that we would want them to. But again, we are outliers. Could they look and find some middle ground and offer some things to their customers? Absolutely. Do they have the resources, time, and energy to do it? That's a whole other discussion, and that's for them, not for us.
Yeah, I think another, tool that they could put in the box, and you're right, he did think about it, and he did say that, we can look at other things and consider, adding other tools to that box. Another one would be, simple money management. Right, that doesn't necessarily cost them anything in terms of people, winning, right? But just simple money management practices: 1%, 2% of your bankroll. How to kind of manage a bankroll over time, and if it were to sort of be in their favor, how can a player lose money more slowly over time? Right, that might be sort of a nice middle ground there.
Totally.
But anyway, again, kudos to them for coming on the show. And Pace, this was just the first of many. We're going to be talking to other people from sportsbooks, perhaps other people out there in this sports betting landscape, that we think may have valuable information, knowledge, tips, tools, stuff to share with us and our audience. And so we've got several more lined up for the beginning of 2024 here, which I'm really excited about. I love meeting new people and chatting with new people and learning new things. And one of those topics that we're going to be exploring a little more closely in the coming weeks is the idea of exchanges. And this is something that's still relatively new in the North American market. It is pretty prevalent already on the UK side and on that side of the pond. But we are seeing more of them here, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that topic and those ideas. And so for all of you out there listening and watching, that's something that you can expect in the coming weeks. And so really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm pumped, Shane. It should be a great year ahead, and great shows lined up. And yeah, just one last shout out to those guys. They knew today was going to be difficult, and they still came on, and they took the heat. And hopefully, we got a little bit closer to purifying the betting industry.
One show at a time.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
buddy. Till next week. Keep beating those Bucks.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.